Today's podcast is sponsored by Bodibro. Bodibro are a sportswear company based in County Wexford. Be sure to check out their website and social media accounts, and I will leave the links to them in the video description. So Emlyn, thanks very much for coming on. How have you been keeping the last 2 or 3 months? We're just coming out of the lockdown, it seems now.
Thanks, Dara, for having me on. Listen, all's good. I suppose no more than anyone, I suppose my structure hasn't really changed too bad. I'm a guard there, stationed in Boyle and Roscommon, so I suppose we're working 4 days on, 4 days off, so it hasn't really changed my situation that much. But listen, obviously sport-wise, I think no matter any man that's any way passionate about sport, it's definitely had a massive knock-on effect in that. But listen, hopefully, we're looking towards the next couple of weeks. It seems like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So hopefully, if people kind of stay, I suppose, to the restrictions of COVID for the next couple of weeks, hopefully things will be opened up, and as we'll see a bit of football in the next few weeks.
Yeah, do you like the way they come with the club instead of the county to come back first?
Yeah, a few people ask me that. I suppose for me now, I'm not really with the county at the minute. It's easy for me to turn and say, "Oh yeah, club." Now I can see both sides of it, and the whole kind of thing that the percentage of county footballers in comparison with the club players. I suppose everyone wants a fair go at it, and I suppose it's the right thing to do. Now, the last thing we want to do is I'm reading different things today about they're trying to rush club championships in different counties so they can make time for county players to get back and train. I'm not sure if I'd agree with that. I think let the club play and give them enough time to get a finish, and then wherever the county can fit it in. But yeah, it's going to be different. It'll be different playing county football at that time of year and watching games, and I suppose maybe more wintry kind of situations and pitches might be in a good shape. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I think, listen, 2 months ago, we would all take in one game, but to have any chance for a championship, I think it's a great positive thing to see anyway.
Yeah, do you even think the GA might have come under a bit of pressure even from the public that John Horan seemed to rule his house only a month ago? That's pretty much like there'd be no games, if you like, and then the growing pressure might have just got them, and they gave in eventually.
Yeah, I suppose when John Horan his speech on the Sunday game, I suppose when he came out and basically said literally no vaccination, there'll be no football. I suppose people are kind of taken back, but one thing, I'd be fond of Twitter and that myself. I'm not a medical expert, and I don't like getting into them debates, and I suppose one thing I've noticed over the last couple of months, the GAA people that think they're experts in every other aspect of life. And John Horan's only a human being, and he's not a doctor either, and he's put in the spot answering these questions. But I think they've dealt with it as best they can, and I suppose now there's people giving out that they're not letting us on the pitches earlier. But listen, at the end of the day, it's all about saving lives, and at the end of the day, the GAA is important, but there's still a lot more to life than football as well. And if it's a matter of saving a few people's lives, I think it's take as much time as they need, that they're happy that everyone will be safe going to games, players and spectators.
Yeah, you might even see a few more upsets maybe in the club championships and even the inter-county later on in the year, that teams are more of a level playing field with regards to maybe training, that they haven't anywhere near the amount done that they would have had in previous years. Yeah,
and I think I've been chatting to a few different players from different counties, and I know different counties have different attitudes to what's going on. I know one or two fellas that have been flat out with county teams even still up to this date. So I suppose them counties are looking to get the edge in Dublin and that, and they're probably hoping that Dublin aren't going to be as prepared. But listen, time will tell, and I suppose the year that's in it, it'll be always the year that'll be saying, nobody cared about that championship or clubs or life. We weren't prepared. There's always going to be a bit of negativity no matter who comes out the winners on this side, and I suppose even for clubs, I know our own club, we've been staying in touch, and I suppose more than yourselves, wherever you are, everyone's trying to do a bit, but it's very hard to train on your own, to get the right intensity into it. But as I said, hopefully now in the next 2 or 3 weeks we'll be back out together for, I suppose, a bit of crack and everything alone, the camaraderie with the boys, whatever about the football and winning, that's definitely part of what I miss, and it's just a bit of banter,
Yeah, so we'll move on to yourself. You didn't take the sort of the normal path maybe for a lot of county players, that you got code through maybe the minor setup and that. You actually played a bit of soccer with Sligo Rovers. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, career started off underage soccer. Would have been, I suppose, my first passion really. Well, whether it was my first passion or not, it was kind of the way just the road went for me. I was in Sligo Rovers underage. Got called into the first team when I was around 16 and played a few pre-seasons and made my debut, then senior debut against UCD, I think when I was 17. But I got offered a full-time contract then at the time, and there was a couple of players like Shamie Coleman was there at the time, but I had applied for the Guards as well, and I suppose that path, my parents they're all against me signing full-time with Sligo Rovers, and in fairness, financially it wouldn't have been something that you're going to be making a massive amount of money at the time, so I took the path towards Templemore, and then with that I signed part-time with Sligo Rovers, but I was only home weekends and I was playing kind of reserves football. So Leslie Dolan was Leitrim manager at the time, and I think the minor championship had just finished up, and he just asked me to come in, and he'd seen me playing for Sligo IT previous few months in a challenge match against themselves. So yeah, so then obviously in 2006. I played a couple of National League games in 2006, and then I left to go back playing soccer. I was kind of mixing between the both for them 2 years, and then 2008 when I went to Templemore, I gave the GA my kind of full commitment. And I suppose haven't looked back since. We'll obviously look back on different things with injuries and all that, but yeah, that's where it kind of started more so than in 2008 where we made my championship debut against New York. So yeah, it was kind of all over the place really, and I suppose it kind of missed out a minor. I suppose it's something I would have liked to have played in, but at the same time, it wasn't to be. And I suppose you can regret looking back on it, but at the same time, maybe the soccer did take first preference back then.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, would you even look back on a bit of regret that you didn't keep at the soccer maybe for a few more years, or was it a decision that you thought was the right one at the time as well?
Yeah, I do regret it, to be honest. Now, as much as I enjoy Gaelic and the career, I just that whole professional setup of soccer really did kind of. It's like I'm living here in Sligo myself, and I'd be driving by back a few months ago. You see them out during the day training, and it was just a nice, easy life, and the training was easier, and there was no real. It's not really a dogging situation, and 1v1 tackling drills in the winter months, getting the head smacked around the place, So I did regret that part of it, but at the same time, listen, GA. It probably for you obviously it's a massive identity to who I am in GA, and I probably wouldn't be who I am only for it, and I don't think I would have been the same person I am if I'd stuck at the soccer career. But listen, everything works out the way it does for you, and I don't regret it, but I definitely do. I suppose I'm back playing soccer now in the last couple of months. I was come there January, and it's nice to get back playing. It's just a lot less pressure, I think, playing it. Whereas the GA, it does, I suppose, it absorbs so much of the community. The pressure's there, and but no, listen, it kept me going through my teens, and I suppose it was great to have an opportunity to play both Gaelic and soccer.
Yeah, and even coming up through the years now, do you actually see professional aspects now creeping into inter-county training? I know even the top level Dublin probably are training like a professional team. Would you have seen that in your time with Leitrim?
Yeah, listen, I can see the difference. I remember I was in Dublin travelling on the road for training, the diet, I was always chubbier probably too back then, and you pull into the shop before training and get a bottle of crisps, bars, when you train, and your diet, there's no structure around strength and condition or dietary in them days. And then obviously Mickey Moormill took us over in 2009, and when he came in with John Morrison, they kind of totally tried to change the pattern and the way forward. And even with underage now, Leitrim, I see we're only starting to come to really terms with it, and we're probably 7, 8, 9 years too late to try and catch up with the likes of Dublin. But the difference in terms of commitment, as you said, it used to be your Tuesday, Thursday night training, game Sunday, a few pints Sunday night, no questions asked, whereas now it's realistically it's 7 days a week, and it's not even the training, it's outside training and the diet, and you become so fixated yourself on it. It's not even people putting pressure on you, it's just you want to get that edge in everybody, and I don't know where it stops, and I found that myself even in the last number of years of diet and everything, counting calories, counting this. It's not really good for your head too, going that extreme as well, because at the end of the day, it is only a sport, and especially for the level we're playing, like our success out of it isn't massive. Fair enough, if you're competing for All Ireland's, I can understand why, but you do have to take a step back and get outside the bubble and maybe say to yourself, what's the point? Because life's there to be lived as well, and restricting yourself to one biscuit or two biscuits or this sort of thing, you kind of start saying to yourself, is it really worth it?
Yeah, which you even see it as a bit of a negative, as you said, that lads are nearly just want to play football. It is an amateur sport at the end of the day, and that's even creeping into maybe club teams now at a high level. That strength and conditioning, everything, a lot more pressure being put on them as well.
Yeah, and even for myself, my whole emphasis on growing up playing football, it's always on the ball. Pinging balls to train outside the right. You know what I mean? Just the basic skills of the game. Whereas now the whole focus is consistent checking in on gym sessions, this nutrition. It's actually the football end of it is probably the smallest part of it at the minute. And I'm involved with Leitrim Minors there this year now with training. And we're trying to bring that back into it. It's basically skill level is what we want. And for younger lads coming through, especially, like you're not going to learn it at 27, 28. It needs to be bred into you from a young age. And at the minute, you'd be a bit weary that there is too much of an emphasis on other things outside actually than playing football itself, i.e. nutrition and strength and condition, which is obviously important as well. But there's definitely more to it,
Yeah, and then on to Leitrim. I suppose 2011 probably would have been your first big win, really, that you bet Sligo, I think, Mark Fitch Park. How big a deal was it to actually win that one?
Yeah, 2011 was probably, and now listen, no more than now, haven't had a massive amount of success in, obviously, the county career, but 11, I came back from a cruciate after doing it in 2009 and 10, so 11 was huge for me just to get back, obviously playing first and foremost, and obviously to beat Sligo here in Mark Fitch Park, and I suppose coming from North Leitrim where I am, obviously there's a massive rivalry with Leitrim Roscommon, but for the part of the county I'm from, Sligo would be my biggest rival, so I have a lot of friends here. So yeah, it was huge that time for us. And obviously we went on then to semi-final, unfortunately, with Betway Roscommon. But I suppose looking back and now it's bigger than it ever was, because it's probably the only provincial championship match outside of London and New York we've won since then, so which kind of nearly sickens you when you nearly make that stat. But listen, it's something that I'll always remember, and unfortunately it wasn't a cup rank, but you have to cherish these small little things when you're involved with the likes of Leitrim and these things. And I suppose it did kick on for a number of years after that, I know we won 13 and 14 2 FBD league titles and that, but that championship win is still way ahead of the likes of that,
Yeah, I suppose probably Roscommon could be thrown into that category maybe in the early start of that last decade. Would you have feared Sligo and Roscommon that you would have had a fair chance maybe just to beat them if you
definitely Sligo. The mentality was there with us. We knew we were well capable of beating them, and in fairness, like Mickey Moore and John Morrison would have definitely increased that. I suppose the mental side of things, and believing in yourself and that sort of thing, and that definitely would have helped us get over the line against Sligo. Now going into semi-final that time, we definitely would have thought at that time we were more than capable of beating Roscommon. But in fairness, Roscommon were coming off the back of that 2006 minor team and that, and them lads were 4 or 5 years on, and in fairness they haven't looked back since, so just unfortunately in my career, year on year, it just seems to be Roscommon we were meeting, and I just I think last 3 or 4 years. But no, listen, it's when you look back on it now, it would be nicer to get closer to Roscommon even around that time, because we thought we were kind of going well. But small little things like that you look back and I suppose there's still good memories regardless of how small or little they are.
Yeah, and then 2013, would that be nearly one of the biggest sort of disappointments? That I think London had taken out Sligo over in London, and then you were obviously in the semi-final against them. And surely you would have been thinking then, this is our path to a Connacht final, and then you'd be guaranteed a spot in the last 12. You'd be in the round 4 qualifier then as well. Yeah,
that's probably the biggest year of regret in my career. 2013, I was captain Leitrim, obviously, and I had a good enough number of years done before that. 2011 as well, I won my club intermediate. I won club senior in 2012. So coming off that, I transferred to St Bridget's in Dublin in 13. I was captain Leitrim then, and we started off in New York. We were, in fairness, we had a very strong squad that time as well. And I know myself, even I thought I was going to kick 3-7 against New York that day. And I just knew confidence was going well. And unfortunately for myself, I snapped a tendon on the back of my knee the week before that London game. And then we had a couple other issues with 4 lads, with discipline. And it just went out completely. It just turned into a complete nightmare for us. And I was taken off after 2 minutes of that first Sunday game, and obviously we got the draw. And then I tried to start the second game, didn't help, and we were missing Paddy Maguire. Listen, everything that went against us, and you have to hand it to London as well. In fairness, they were a strong competitive team, like there's no question about it, But it's definitely one that got away from us, and it was definitely my best chance, I suppose, when I look back in my career, of getting to a Connacht final, And I think the team that went to New York and all that before all the shit hit the fan as such, excuse me language, but we were in a good place, but it turned into a complete nightmare for management and everybody. And even the media jumped on all this discipline and this different lads being left off the panel and quitting. And so, unfortunately, that is definitely, as you said there, it's a huge regret, unfortunately, and it's something that it'll definitely poke away at me for years to come, thinking back on it.
Yeah, like what is the mindset nearly going into a Connacht championship? As you said even a few minutes ago, that the last 3 or 4 years has always been Roscommon in the Hyde or in Carrick. Like, is it demoralising nearly playing Roscommon Mayo every year and then like knowing that you probably won't beat them?
Yeah, like listen, I suppose I'd be very open about that, and it's not about, people say you need to be positive, you need to have a mentality, you're going to beat them, and you do, of course, when you're in a bubble, you do get that, and I took a bit of flack last year, the year before, and I done the draw up in RT, and we done it with Tony Smith, and the camera would come on. I just said I was deflated when they got Roscommon again, and I was, let's be realistic. I said we had to beat Roscommon Mayo 1 goal to win a Connacht, and I think my own club and my own county management took a bit of offence to me saying that, but it wasn't about being negative. It was just about being realistic, and if we're Division 4, and I said if we got out of Division 4, maybe you can see how you get on. But we were a team operating in Division 4, trying to win a Connacht championship by beating potentially 3 Division 1 teams. Like, let's be realistic. Like, you're looking at the TV and you're going, Jesus Christ, not again. Like, and you just want a bit, and like as most of my friends are Sligo, but I say to them, they were the team you just wanted. Like, it's just like, give us Sligo, because you have that natural belief that you can beat them, and you've no given right for that. But it's just, you've taken so many trimmings against Roscommon, Mayo and Galway over the years. Year on year, it does get more difficult, and we haven't bridged the gap in the last number of years again. So, like, even if you're bringing it down to a couple of points, you'd say fair enough. But year on year, Roscommon are giving us Batons out the door. It can be demoralising, and I suppose over the years, league was always our main focus. That's why championship was whatever, and get into the qualifiers, and maybe there are 2 years or 3 years we got a bit of a run. We bet Loud and got another good day against Monaghan and Carrick, the betters. But the qualifiers was then your kind of best option. But I suppose all you're doing in the qualifiers versus prolong your year. It's not as if you're going to achieve anything out of it, bar get an extra game or two. But like, it's a tough province in that aspect when you have 3 top teams in it, and there's a good chance you're like, at least Leinster, there's a lot more openness in it. There's a good chance you might get 1 or 2 games out meeting, Dublin or Kildare or Meath even. But in structure wise, you'd really love to see it change up some way that it's not so repetitive, even for the fans. Like, I think the rivalry from Leitrim and Roscommon has gone a wee bit now, because the results over the years have been so, I suppose before the game, they're inevitable nearly,
Yeah, before we get into the tier 2, would you like to see the Connacht Championship stay in some sort of capacity? I know people are saying nearly that Munster and Leinster are just dead at the moment. Would you like to see the provincials stay? Yeah,
it's hard. Like, again, it's another topic, isn't it? It's I suppose it's easy for me to say get rid of it because we're not competing for them, But the likes of, and it's the funniest stat I've just seen. I think I was about Mayo the other day. They haven't won it in the last 5 years. And I was actually I just seen that the last day saying, a team that's been around, one of the best in the country, but it just shows the competitiveness of it when they're struggling to win it. But it's a 3-team competition really, and like ourselves and Sligo, unfortunately, are just at the bottom of the pile. But like, you can understand with Leinster and even Munster to a degree, but like Ulster is obviously the only one that's probably hanging in there as well, and trying to fight for it. But I don't know. It's like an open draw. I don't know. It's very hard to know. But a change is definitely could be for the better down the line if it keeps going the way it's going, because the top teams are definitely pulling away so much more and they're leaving a lot of teams behind them that it's just taking away the competitiveness of the Connacht Championship. And it's up until the final is the only real competitive game out of a lot of them championships,
Yeah, and obviously they're bringing in the tier 2. Whether that goes ahead now or not, we don't know this year. But do you like the structure that they have planned first, or would you prefer nearly a league sort of system that players like from Leitrim and Sligo and a few other counties, that you get more games in the months of June and July?
Yeah, like, I suppose the different proposals was out at the time, and you had the Champions League format and all that sort of thing. And I suppose a lot of players were more for that because you're still getting your chance to get a rattle of Division 1 team. A decent Division 2 team, a Division 3 team maybe, so I suppose for that was a more incentive for fans. Now listen, the tier 2, I think we have to be honest about it, and people give out, like, I would have had it, like, I even spoke before, I suppose year on year your mind changes, but I was saying that there was room for 3 tiers, like, like a club championship, senior, intermediate, junior, and work your way up and justify it, even for a tier 2. Like, if you look this year with teams like, from Division 3 down, like the Cork and these teams, Cork, Tipperary, Down, Derry, like, to win a tier 2 championship, even for for a Division 4 team that was like Waterford or these teams there this year, like, it's a fair feat in itself, like, so I think, listen, they're trying to do something, I understand, but I don't think there's an awful lot of discussion put into it. I think John Horn was happy enough just to get something in place, and I don't know, as I said before, come down even and speak to the likes of Leitrim, as I said, come down and meet the players and ask them what they want, because I know the GPA and these are doing surveys and you're ticking a box, but you're not really getting to the bottom of it and the feeling of them players, because it's the Division 3, Division 4 teams that affects mainly. And I think if he had a personal meeting with them all and asked exactly how they felt, he'd get a better overview of it, But I suppose they're up there making their own decisions and they have to do it, and they're against time restraints and there's pressure on them. But you're never going to keep everyone happy on your direct. You're always going to have a divided opinion, and even in teams, I could be happy with it, whereas such another player, Leitrim, wouldn't be happy with it,
Yeah, is it even the media coverage that probably a lot of people are saying that if they're going to do it, they have to do it right? Because you see probably the hurling on the other end, the Christy Ring and Nick Urackle, you don't hear anything about it, and then you'll see the finals in Croke Park all in one day then.
Yeah, and I suppose even for Leitrim, but we see the progression of Leitrim hurling since this has been tiered. Like, Leitrim have won a couple of cup, you know what I mean? And again, media attention is important, but we don't get that much media attention in games. Like you wouldn't hear much about Leitrim in the Division 4 league game. Anyway, come championship, they'll show 2 minutes in the Sunday game of Roscommon beating us by 10 points. So, like, likes of us, it's not for the media. If you get to the higher up you deserve the media attention. And it's the same in every sport. It's the same in sure, look at the Premiership, look at the Championship. You don't see as much of the Championship, obviously, because they're not in the. So I think that's like people don't want to be looking at the bottom tier stuff. So I think it's up to teams to take it on board and say, well, listen, unfortunately, if we want to be in the limelight, we have to get our structures right within our counties to make it that in the next 5-6 years, we're going to be up competing with the top level. And I think that lies in our own hands, really.
Yeah, would you have found it hard to stay motivated, we'll say, going into a Connacht Championships, just say the league is finished now when you're playing a Roscommon, and then if you lose that, sure, then in the qualifier and you draw up, we'll just say maybe a Monaghan again, is it hard to stay motivated when you see these games coming ahead?
Yeah, like over the years, year on year, you'd have different thoughts of it. And I think the year was under Benny Guckin there, the year that we bet New York there 3 or 4 years ago. The game went extra time.
Yeah.
We came back and played Roscommon, and they gave us a bit of another beating thing. But we actually, I suppose when you have a good group together and you have a decent mentality and boys stick together, and I suppose a lot of fellas didn't leave to go to New York or anything like that, or like we really were, I suppose, admitting we were hoping for a good draw in the qualifiers. And as you said there, had we got, I suppose, Monaghan in the first game would have been demoralised, but we got Louth, and Louth were after being relegated from, and we knew ourselves, like, there's definitely a great chance of beating Louth. And again, it's all belief in the head, and there was a bounce in training, it was as good as we ever trained. And we went out and bet Louth by 10 points or so, and then we got Monaghan, but we had a great buzz then going into the Monaghan game. But that one game in between definitely gave us it does give you a massive added motivation. But as you said, if we had got another top team and got another beating again, it does dampen the morals going forward, and it's like you go out for a few pints with the lads after the game, and to be honest with you, it's a depressing sort of a night, and I suppose we've been used to many of them over the years because the Motorway County game is now there's no drinking and all this after games, and the one game we did win after Louth, we hadn't time to go out and actually celebrate the win. Because we were looking forward to the Monaghan game after. So anytime we went for pints was after the game, we were hammered. So, but no, it's the motivation as it's year on year, it can definitely change.
Yeah, you actually mentioned the New York game, and there was a lot of talk. Probably you were going over there. I think Roscommon just got out there; they won by a point. Sligo, I think, won comfortably in the end, but New York had them in trouble. It was nearly like you were going over there, and this was nearly going to be the time that New York would get the win.
Yeah, it was set up for it. Like in fairness, and New York had the strongest team they ever had. From county players that they probably, no disrespect, on paper they probably had a better team than us. But that added bit of playing National League together, and I suppose that bit of more bonding within ourselves probably got us over the line. But because I remember in the hotel that morning, even before the game, when Marty Morrissey came in to do an interview with someone, and we were just saying like they were just ready. They were ready for this first victory for New York, and I suppose after 2 minutes, I remember I think Neil Collins, a county man of yourselves, there ran by me and kicked the ball in. Jimmy Clark laid off and banged back at net, and I was like, Jesus Christ! I was like, and the place lifted, and I was thinking, we struggle, and we kicked a few points and just kept us in it in the first half, and we made hard work of it 2 at times, but it was an incredible game to be involved in, and again, I was only after come back from a cruise ship. I hadn't played any games when we first came back, and Jesus Christ, I remember I couldn't even walk off the pitch after. The knees were just like two balloons, and I said, there's a few minutes to go, you were thinking, Jesus, we can't even go out for a few beers here now in the Bronx. We can't, everything's going through your head, and I just couldn't believe we kicked 2 or 3 points in the last 2 minutes to win it,
Yeah, like what was the pressure like on the field? Because obviously New York went 2 or 3 points up with only a few minutes to go. Like, are you thinking, this is it, we're going to get caught out over here and we're going to have to face a good bit of criticism?
Yeah, that was, I remember standing full forward line. I think they did the pressure, and there was about 3 minutes left, and the club mate, my Daruni, who'd been on, and he was taken off, came back on, and I hadn't it in the legs anyway, but I remember just saying to him, if you get a ball, just put the boot through it, and thankfully he kicked the point. Next thing, Shane Quinn had a goal chance, and he should have probably put it over the bar to draw it initially, but he went for the goal, and the keeper saved it, and it bounced over the bar, and then out of nowhere, I suppose one of our unlikely kind of people, Noel Drunkard would be more of a stereotypical back defender, pops up and kicks it over 30 yards, and I just couldn't believe it. But it was just the atmosphere of it, and and I suppose again, as you said, like they were justifiably a good team, New York, and it wouldn't have been an embarrassment to lose to them. But it's just on paper, you'd be looking at New York, bet Leitrim, and it's more that side of it, because in fairness, they had some quality footballers, and no more than Jamie Clark, So just to get out of that alive was absolutely massive. And I suppose obviously the Roscommon defeat was disappointing after it, but then I suppose we did bounce back against Louth. But the likes of them games, it definitely strengthened up the group massively,
Yeah, it's even that, like teams of a similar level playing that, like it sounds, obviously I was listening to it on the radio, we didn't get to see it live, but it sounded like a brilliant game, and you nearly just, you don't see them in the summer, you only see them in the months of February, March and April.
Yeah, and as you said, there are teams at the same level, which is a huge point there. And same as the National League, like, you know, the National League is a great competition because everybody's capable of beating everybody, and everyone has a belief they can get promoted or win their games. Whereas there's just such a gap in Championship, and I suppose when you're, as I said, when you're competing against like Division 1 teams consistently in Connacht for us, whereas like for us, realistically, your league is your Championship inevitably, you know, and you just try to be as successful as you can in that, and then see where that brings you for Championship. But yeah, for the likes of the bottom tier teams, the league is definitely the most important part of it, you know, throughout the year.
Yeah, well, obviously last year he got promoted out of Division 4. Like, how big a deal was that for you? Because obviously, as you were saying there, it's probably your championship.
Yeah, and that was the focus. In fairness, you know, it was just kind of. So obviously, we said we knew we were capable enough. The year before, we'd been kind of unlucky enough, and we started off poorly, and we'd won all our 4 or 5 games at the end, and then obviously Terry Hyland had come in, and we'd come off that loud win, obviously, and put up an alright of a performance against Monaghan. Even the scoreline didn't reflect it. So we kept that group of players together for the first time in a long time, because most years we've such an overlap of players year on year. You know, there'd be 10 fellas in, 10 fellas out, but we kept everyone together. And listen, we scraped through a lot of games, a point here and a point there, and maybe over the years we wouldn't have that bit of luck, you know. So, like down in Limerick, their last kick winner, they missed a free. You know, they just got that bit of luck when we needed it. And as I said, we didn't have it years gone by, but yeah, it was great. It was brilliant. And I suppose even today in Croke Park, just for Leitrim fans, football fans especially, because they've been up there, the hurlers, but just to get up there, and there was thousands of them up there even that day. And unfortunately, Derry bet us with 4 points or whatever that day, but it was still a great day out and a memory for, you know, I suppose for younger generations, the Leitrim fans to see, I suppose, for them to be able to say to see me or Ryan O'Rourke playing in Croke Park rather than consistently looking at Jim McConnelly, or, you know what I mean? It's nice for the younger generation to be able to say, well, geez, I want to be in Croke Park. I've seen Leitrim play there, because I suppose I never seen Leitrim play in Croke Park myself, you know, so it was nice to well, the Tommy Murphy Cup a few years ago, but even for a league at that sort of a level, it was just nice to be able to be part of it, definitely.
Yeah, was that even a bigger motivation in Division 4, that this is probably our only chance that we'll get just to even play in Croke Park?
Yeah, year on year, and I you know from the day I started, I used to travel up and down the road there from Kinloch, and myself and Paul Brennan there, who ended up leaving Leitrim, go to Donegal there. But we used to talk about it every night. All the dream was to get to Croke Park to play it, you know. It was always to get there, and we were close a couple of times here and there, but that was, I suppose, we got our opportunity then, you know. And when speaking to him, it's funny because he was playing actually that day for Donegal in the game after us, you know. And I says, it's ironic that the two of us were travelling up and in the car talking about it. I says, and we got there eventually, and on the same day, but in 2 different teams.
Yeah, would you have actually ever, because I think you were born in Donegal, would you have ever thought of playing for the likes of a Donegal or a different county?
Yeah, I grew up in Bundoran and then moved to Kinloch with 8 or 9, and there used to be listening to speculation and all that about it. People used to say to me, but it's never something that, you know, as I said, I'm growing up in Leitrim realistically, as I'd always say, and I've always represented them, and it's not something I ever would have thought about, you know. But you obviously look across the border. I'd still support Donegal a lot, you know, in terms of football. I'd be still a fan and that, and even, you know, it's nice to win all Ireland there, and you look across with a bit of jealousy, but at the same time, you know, you deal with whatever you're dealt with yourself, and you know, as they always say, Leitrim was flowing through my blood, and that was always the way it was going to be. So, as I suppose people are always saying, "Oh, you could do this. Your birth cert is this. Your passport is this," but no, it was never something I would have thought about anyway. You know, I wouldn't have probably got a game anyway. So.
Do you actually think Leitrim could use that sort of rule? Because obviously Roscommon had brought in Conor Cox last year, that there are players out there that could strengthen maybe a weaker county.
Yeah, and there's a number. We took 2 or 3 lads in from Dublin over the years. We'd like there in New York that game. We met them with Brendan Galler playing for us from Luke and Sarsfields there, and his brother came down with us for a while, and we did chase 1 or 2 other lads from up there. I think there's a couple lads from Jude's and that, but I think they had ambitions probably to try and keep playing for Dublin, and I suppose it's understandable, and maybe the whole process of having to travel down to Carrick-on-Shannon to train, and like you think of that if you're up that direction, living in your 5 minutes all day from train, it's a massive commitment. Like, and the Gara lads, even that are from Leitrim, travelling from Dublin every second or third night, it takes a huge bearing on their lives. You know, the training is the easy part, but as we were saying around, the commitment to get to training, get home from training, and work along with it is very tough. And I suppose it wouldn't be the most appealing thing maybe for a player from Dublin to have to put in that sort of a commitment and not get a whole pile out of it.
Yeah, I suppose to finish up, obviously you're not a part of the panel this year, but you haven't retired. Are you still hoping to return to the team one day?
Yeah, that's the hope. And listen, I suppose I sat down with Terry around the year and we kind of said, whatever going forward this year, well, now, as the league, this was before, in the middle of the league we were chatting, we kind of said, well, this year's gone anyway, so we kind of look to next year. Now, the way things have gone this year, I'm not sure what the situation is. Hopefully get back now, obviously the club, and I suppose go out and try and perform for the club and maybe put in a position that he's no other option maybe to try and call me back in, and I suppose it's just that it's a position I've never been in before when you're kind of chasing to get back in, where you always might be thinking you might be the first on the team sheet or whatever, but it's a different scenario just to deal with it. And I suppose I'm getting older too and I'm pushing on too, Darry. I'm going 33 this year, but I feel like there's still something left in me, and listen, if it happens, it happens, but I says it's not the end of the world, and I think this whole pandemic has kind of shown that too as well. There's definitely for every county footballer out there to have to realise there's a lot more to life than football at the present moment, and it's an eye opener for everybody I think involved.
Well, Emlyn, thanks very much for coming on.
Dara, keep up the good work. Listen, nice to talk to you anyway.
Cheers, thanks very much.
All the best.